This is an unpopular opinion, but I'm not having a fucking go at Pauline Hanson, although she can be a character. Old mate here basically says the same thing every freaking year. She wants migration to stop. Said this last week, and she also said this in 2017, where she blames immigration for Australia's housing affordability problem. Really? Makes these quasi half-cooked claims, which does have these valid points, like, where are all the Australia's new migrants going to live? What's going to happen to all the locals that are living in Australia right now? And she uses all these examples like, what about those people that's living in the tent in Queensland? They don't even have a place to live. They're living in the bloody park bench. Yes, I do agree with her to a certain extent, but this is my experience because I do have a lot of migrants coming into Australia, and this is what I want to share to you. Currently, 650k are set to come into Australia. I've got an example 1 client and an example 2 client. I've got a client in China, basically sold off 2 units in Beijing. Probably got a pocket 3 mil. Okay, we're talking about AUD. Visa to come to Australia is like, 10, 20k, fuck all the costs, very little, in terms of the scheme of how much she has. She has 3 mil, probably plus another 1 mil. I have another client in Hong Kong, okay, selling 3 of his properties, like units. Probably got a pocket 5 mil, okay? He's also coming into Australia. These guys have plans to come into Sydney to buy a property. Now guys, they're not going to compete with those poor locals who are living in a freaking tent in Queensland. Or they're not going to fight with those Central Park bums in Central Park Eddie's Avenue for a spot to live. These old mates is going to live in prime spot Chatswood. They're going to buy a house in Chatty, okay, with their freaking millions of dollars. Housing affordability has nothing to do with immigration or migration, because if migration was not to happen at all, those poor folks that are living in those tents or living homeless, they'll never get to live in Chatty. Never in their bloody life. Because before immigration, say immigration never happened, they can never afford it. Now, after immigration, there's the 650,000 people that are coming, and a majority of people that come have money. Well, they're not going to compete with these poor people. They're going to buy in those rich-ass suburbs. And old mate Hanson goes, this is not good for Australia. Please explain. Not going to have all these 650 people coming to Australia. Bro, this is not 650 people. This is 650 people, each with maybe $1 or $2 million of money. They're injecting money into our bloody economy. Plus, they're going to bloody work. They're not going to sit on the Centrelink dole or probably sitting on their park bench with their little small TV watching Home and Away. My clients come from China, Hong Kong. They work from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day for 6 to 7 days. That's their work ethic. Those are the people that are coming into Australia. We need labor like that to generate our economy, to bring it forward. If you stop migration, who are you going to rely on? These people in the tents, okay, I get it. I feel sorry for them. They're facing housing affordability issues. But are these guys adding anything towards increasing our bottom dollar for Australia's economy? Not to be rude, but can I look at each of those individuals in the last 10 years? Were they working? What were they doing with their money? 10, 15 years ago when housing was affordable, did they attempt to buy something? Let's ignore all their bad life choices, okay? They're now living in a tent and people can't buy homes. And now the government's trying to increase migration to improve the economy. Let's blame the migrants. I don't know about you. I'm very commercial. I'm very of a capitalist person. I'm a self-declared capitalist. Would I rather have people coming into the country with a lot of money, or people who's going to continue living in the park, and maybe for the next 10 years, they probably won't get a job? Again, that's just the opposite extremes of the equation. In between, there's the grays. There are people who do work and still end up living in, those parks, benches. But I'm saying migrants with money who are coming here, they're not going to compete for those spaces, those lower-end housing that these guys can probably afford, all right? They're going to live in Chatty. They're going to live in North Shore. Regardless of that, no migration, none of those folks can afford those property prices anyway. Again, this is a very sensitive topic. It's unpopular opinion. I'm not saying those people who live in those benches are their fault. I'm just saying it doesn't have anything in relation to migration, okay? In fact, migration improves Australia's economy. So jump in the comments. Let me know what you think. Either roast me or toast me. Love to read the comments.